Here, I'll say no.
Thank
To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Shuganta, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, faced to have 7 strides, and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one God, the thusness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, To you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prosper. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, or perform only virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Baba Gundo Sola, Telo Digi Dagi, Toba Duji Na, Chomdende Jibu, Chago Bumbo Rela, Ongi, Gindu Chembo Dan, Janju Sembe, Gindu Chembo, Taba Jitu Jude De, Chomdende, Zamona, Washi, Javi, Chugi, Namda, Nobody Shuzo, Ya, De, Janju Semba, Semba, Chembo, Baba, Cherese, Wanju, Shera, Gevaru, Jimba, Samoji, la nambarata je pumbu nga wonde da la yang ra je ge tombara nambara tao tene sa je je tu zedan demba shari bu janju semba semba chengu baba chere ze wanju la dige je meso rige bu gala la shera ge baru du jemba zamo che ba de ba de je dar la bar cha dige je me ba dan janju semba semba chengu baba chere ze wanju ge zedan demba shari da de bu la dige meso shari bo rige bo mo gala la shara ke paru de jemba zama sheba joba de ba de tidar nambar da wa jade pombo ngabo de da la ya ra je ke tombar nambar yanda bar je su sao su tomba ni su zo su le tomba ni jema yin tomba ni le ga su jema yin de shin du zo ro dan du je nambar sheba na tomba ho shari bo de da che dan je tomba ni de tsini me ba ma ge ba ma ga ba ri ma me ba ri ma da ra wa ri wa me ba ga wa me ba wo shari bo de da che sem ba nam tho ba me bi chi ri chi ra je pa ru do chen ba la tsen ji ne de sem la ri ba me je ra ba me de je de lo de shen do de ne nyang e le de be tha ra shen do de sun do na pa ri shu be sa ge tam je kya she ra ge pa ru do chen ba la ten ne na me ba ya Nanda Barazo, Janju, Mombarazo, Barasan, Gezo, Tendo, Nashira, Barudo, Jebema, Riba, Jembema, Lana Mebema, Minyabada, Nyabema, Dunga, Tanjera, Shivar, Jebema, Mizubana, Dembra, Shepa, Chade, Shirake, Barudo, Jembema, Mebatayata, Gade, Gade, Baragande, Barazan, Gade, Buddhizo, Sharibu, Chanju, Sembo, Sembo, Jembo, Deda, Shirake, Barudo, Shimbo, Samola, Labarajo, Dene, Chumdende, Denge, Dede, Shinde, Chanju, Sembo, Sembo, Jembo, Baba, Jene, Wanjula, Lezo, Shejawa, Jene, Lezo, Riki, Bu, Dede, Shino, Dede, Shinde, Jida, Gigi, Tempa, Shindu, Shirake, Barudo, Jembo, Samola, Chepa, Dede, Shinjava, Nangan, Dede, Yeram, Chumdende, Gete, Cheka, Sene, Sedan, Tempa, Shari, Dade, Pusan, Janju, Semba, Semba, Jembo, Baba, Shene, Se, Wanju, Dan, Tamji, Dan, Tempe, Koro, Deda, Dan, Hadan, Nidan, Hamayena, Deda, Jebe, Jiden, Yera, Chumdende, Jisumba, Ngambere, Do. Page 11. Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha and Volchiti, together with a great assembly of monks and Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, realizing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke with the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty.
Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karma, formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karma formation, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes, no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Unless there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all Bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond, and because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most complete and perfect enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be loved as the truth, but there is no distance. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed, Tayava, Gandhi, Gandhi, Oh, Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara. The Bodhisattva Mahasattva saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said. And then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that all gathering in the world of its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of the Lord, praise the grace of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of Buddhism. And now for us it is Thursday and we resume the way of the Bodhisattva, composed by the great illustrious Shantideva. It is the great text, the Bodhicharyavatara, and it is for the Mahayana, the very root of what is demonstrated in Mahayana practice and what we demonstrate through our learning, contemplation, and cultivation.
That today do the Dhamma take watching the church, sit on chairs, take watching the chairs. They say you do. Chew, sit on Dhamma. Church is church, heaven on a bed, that chew down Tartimba. Good rabdo, good chunga, and take watching the chairs. Oh, that take watching the church, and the daughter not easy. Oh, you part of the chimney, you bought on Jebu Sangati, take was all those to see your.
Then in the Mahayana Dharma, and overall in Dharma generally, but within Dharma, within the Mahayana Dharma, when we speak and urge a Dharma upon one, what is meant here is the very best, the consummated Dharma, the supreme form of Dharma, the Mahayana Dharma. Within that, there is the causal vehicle of the Sutrayana and the resultant vehicle of the secret Mantrayana.
Oh, yeah, that's not that. What church that church, magic. And it again, that's somebody your church, but the Machebas in the church, but church, Mare saying, Cox, Gages as some. Oh, that's church, but the Machebas saying somebody. 아니 세 디기 이두 땅숨 라 삼로 땅제 아니 라게 저와 같이 제거는 디 최고 최제로 지금 말해서
We speak of dharma and adharma, that which is dharma and is not. And there's a line drawn between dharma and adharma. And we can say of another, they have practiced dharma or they have not. And that line between dharma and that which is not is drawn based upon whether or not an individual is preoccupied, especially by this life and food and clothing and their reputation and status in this life. And if they are, then that which they do is not dharma.
어이 대단 다치체 디메네 다오나 치오 칼리시고 그래스 앞서나 안 다치체스나 다 디네 치마 랑기 세 디시 모마 세 모마 치켈레 세 모마 디기 야고 제발라 때니 세 디라랑라 하다 토단 요바 베 균제 차단 요바 가르치는 제투가 요바디 세 모메기 제베 지부지 다 단에 제베기 내가 되게 다 지부디 아니 세 치마치세 딜렀다 무슨 소가 요건 토야 다 되게 자녀 지기도나 아니 제세 다 참스내기 해서
Then if that is not dharma, then what would be dharma? And it would be that which is undertaken in view of successive lives. When one acknowledges successive lives, and when one recognizes in their present life and the form it has taken and all of the freedoms that are enjoyed and the capacity to do anything which is present in us, when all of that is acknowledged to be result of what has been done in previous lives, then again, in one's outlook into successive lives to come, one recognizes that all that would be good in lives to come depends upon what is done now. And when one does what would be done, then this is the dharma.
다 이제 이제 땅아서 새 치마스게지 삼로 땅세 다시 대시 개가 열에 아니 거의 다 수수기 이체다 마체다 수수기 켈렌다 많이 생기고 니주 시엔 마시엔다 삼로 땅 마땅히 개발지래 이나 양다 맞고 대시 새 치마스게지 개침부지는 대시 개가 열에 새 치마지 여바지 이나 다 새 치마 야고 거야지 아니 세치마디스 야고 소고고 요바 다디 맞으비 인생체 아니 다지 시제가 요래서
Therefore, when successive lives are expected, and one is confident that they are to come, and whether one is confident or not, whether one acknowledges successive lives or not, depends upon the consideration one has given or has not. And we, for our part, emphasize successive lives and acknowledge successive lives. And when we do, then this involves recognizing that we would ourselves ensure that what is to come is as we would have it. So this is our rationale then.
이제 세단다 치마 생게디 다 여바라기 켈렌 이지체 퇴바체 삼바체 고바체 삼로 땅 아니 치마 여바 이체 아니 여바 이나 따스랑이 냠네디기 제바 이나 아니 냠네 제바도 뭐네 펜도 첨보 대부 첨보 어떤 자상 여바들이 차이를 해서
When these successive lives are acknowledged, one is confident that there are successive lives. There is a conviction in them. And when this has grown out of study and contemplation, and with that study and contemplation, the confidence is reinforced and the study, contemplation, and cultivation continues, this process yields tremendous results for a person, is very advantageous to a person.
다 굉장히 인류 새 니기 tun다라 삼로 땅을 내가 제바디 다스 최 제바나 가르치는 맛이 버레스나 땅아서 배 딜을 끼고 거야 돼가 수인에다 둥에 메드바다 둥에 바 매바다 대화 고고요 봐 아니 딕 수수 강가 삼배나 나라도 삼배나 여러 봐 이나야 아니 새 니기 대화를 때네 아니 최초 제바도 최 말했어요 대시지 개기 여러 저나다 니 버루텔이야 다 대시디 간데스 연구 요래서나 세디기 아주 대화스나 대도 대화다 동에 가리 바이나야 코 튜드지 예전지 아니 미지직다 링나 미지직 로투주디 갸파르겠다 간다라 나라서도 로제 대지직 그러나다 기보다 대화다 동에 세야게 아니 대지직 대시 연구 요래다 니 대화를 찍어 있네 대화 하자는 춘주 차대요 제산디 뱅기요 말해서 무슨
If what we do in the present life, when we are preoccupied with only the present life, does not count as dharma, why not? Why wouldn't it? We all are the same in our desire for pleasure and satisfaction, and in our wish to avoid pain. We all have this in common. We all think to avoid pain and to find contentment. However, now, when we emphasize that this, though, is not dharma, what has happened in between to make it so that it is not dharma? And during this present life, satisfaction and dissatisfactions, whatever they are, satisfaction or dissatisfaction, it is short in duration and it is definite. In duration, it won't last more than 100 years, 60 to 100 years. That is the length of time one experiences pleasure, pain, or whatever one might experience. And if it is pleasure then, and it is definite but of such short duration, then it isn't of so very great a consequence.
세상 다 맞아 사람들 새 되기 또그 담순 가족이 상보 여바 이나양 아니 뒤지 된지지 나라 그런 게 롱수에 두그래 아니 뒤지도 예서나 아니 강가 상관 샤나 랑게 루이네 샤나 도그래 롱주이네 샤나 도그래 랑게 빼다니 니도 가리네다 마 냠도 치고 예선 직사요 말에 아니 말 거유스는 게 랍사요 말에 세상다 되게 강가로 간다라는 미지직 뒤뒤뒤지게 나게다 간다 대주 세베기 다 스스로 좋아되도 있더라고요. 교실에 만도 니기 아니 만도 풀을 패야게 내가 계속 만도 팬토야 차진에 가야요 말에 제가 네 매번 인자 다 만도티 일르다 삼로 땅원이나 아니 그거 춘주 그거 매번 어디지 차대요. 그래서 제가 네 이들 아니 제대로 다 삼로 땅이요 말에 제대로 땅으로스 제대로 마다나 아니 최체도 최체세야게 아니 냠내다 용금 매봐 어떻게 되실 경우요 그래서
And in the present life, whatever one has in food, clothing, and status and reputation, however great it is, it can be consumed and exhausted. And in the end, it will be left behind. The body is left behind. All that one has accumulated is left behind. All of one's friendships are left behind. There's none to whom you can say, come along, and they will. There's no saying, I need you, and they will come. None can be brought, nothing can be brought, and nothing is of any use that is used in food, clothing, and reputation during the present life. It is of value and use for but a short time. And it is a lifetime spent in pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations. And later on, they are of no effect and no force at all. Therefore, these have no real purpose, and we would dispense with them. And wherever we do not, then we are not engaged in dharma.
어이, 이제 제가 이리다 말고 테리기 된다 상로 땅전 아니 랑이다 배전 누구 저와세 가지 영화 예술고 저와세 제부 간지죠 이나 세딜라 팬토야 야자 하장 유유리 나 야부체 누구 치와도 저기 제부 망체 세 치마를 팬게 팬의 용거래 세마다 팬의 시작이 저 친구요래 근데 이리 와서부터 치마한테 대워 용해야 돼 치마 대워야 돼 랑 대워야 돼 rāng dewa rā. Yidhī tsima dewa de rāng lā gugu yuwa rā. Yī gugu yuwa yidhā tā rāng kī sō gugu rā. Sōyā kī chājian wāngchā sūsū lā yuwa rā. Chājian sūsū lā yuwa rā. Chā tā rāng kī mā sō na xiāng kī sō tōgu mā rā. Yidhī tsima tā rāng dewa sōyā rāng lā wāngchā yuwa tā pēchū tā nā yī tā nyam nā chī gu rā yā sō sī.
And during this life, whatever one does physically, verbally, mentally, all that one does physically, verbally, mentally, they end up having very little influence on things in this life, but a great deal of influence in subsequent lives. Most of their force and effect plays out in subsequent lives. The connection with subsequent lives is very great. And when in subsequent lives, we would ensure that those are lives of satisfaction and contentment, and during those successive lives, when it will be we ourselves, each one ourselves, who experience those successive lives, then we now would ensure that those successive lives bode well for us and make sure of it ourselves in the present life. And when we do, with our great capacity to do so, and when we make use of the opportunity in the present to ensure contentment in our futures, then this is Dharma.
Yes, 말하는 사다 때 사람도 면은 돼야 돼. 아니 나도 나도 진짜 싫어래. 아마 방송에 또 샤샤는다 그러나도 미지지 그러나 또 없다. 그런 게 저거 내당 가르기 버냐까 아주 세치 보자. 세티 파토 세티 루이도 파토 아침을 루이도 파랜도 좀 봤다. 세티기 나는 여바되게 가가 샤는 줘야 만도 rāngā pīdōyā tāngā, rāngā pēngā kī chācīng kāyā mī duwāsā. Kī ngā mī kī tōng chūy tā, tōng ām chō guāyā yō, mī kī tōngā yō tā rā chā tā mī sū, rāngā shēng kī rā chā tā tēndē yī tū, tā tsē dī kī dā chā shēng chūy tā pāng rā. Tsē dī kī lā gā yā dū tāng yā gā yī na dū gā yī na sām rā mā tāng wā chā rā. Mā chī mē chā rā sām rā tāng tū bā yī na, 아니 최 제바 생각이 자기를 아니 거기 제베되게 제부디 치마를 배마 인도다 제부 때와 침부터가 열어서 놓지
The prayers we have performed, as we have, were for our Dharma friend who has passed away. And it is plain to us now that they in their life, whatever their situation was during that life of theirs, at this point now, their body and those events have been left behind now. There's nothing that they have taken along with them, have they? We know that what they've done is not of consequence now. We can see this. We are aware of this. We must acknowledge it. We must resist the seductiveness of the present life. We must resist the tendency to evaluate all things in terms of what is better and what is worse, and at present now practice Dharma in earnest.
근데 이게 다 미시 부중화 가다 미시 부중화 생각 자 그번인 것들 그 자주 웃음이 담아 그도 심마 진행 아니 가다 미시 부중화 그러기다 아니 간에서 왔으나 아니 세딜의 차벽에 되바 때문에 대화당 되바 방배 대화스니 뭐 되바 때문에 대화스 직세하서 되바 방배 대화스니 뭐자친 되바 때문에 대화디 아니 대화 때문에 대화는 찍기요 말했어. 대화 방배 대화죠. 이 대화를 찍고 해서 찍어이나 아니 대화 친구 보내드려서 이제 숨을 해서
The Kadamba Adip Purshungwa, who saw through the hard advice for the awakening mind, Bodhisattva, to its very end. Purshungwa did say just this, that there are these two, pleasure from desire and pleasure from non-desire. Pleasure from desire and pleasure from abandoned desire. That pleasure from desire is trivial and minor. That pleasure from abandoned desire is very great.
어이, 그래도 가르치나다 만화도 간다 만화도 다다가 수수기 소와 대화 따야게 대화디 배나가서 미디 통화 대화를 차보잖아 수상화 아니 카도 상아 수 레버 카도 상아 아니 되지 통화이나 나중에 다도 배 수도 콜레게 대통 딜레 되버신 대거와 아니 수술라 배다 자녀 바토 있는 딜레 차그래 배나가서 대바위인데 대형하게 대형을 딸 아주 그 잡아 당기러와 대형을 잡아 당기래 아니 대형을 차기래 대형을 그라를 대형하게 레버 당가 토비 나를 대화 증기로 왔어 이 대화 증야디 아니 가자 대화 양타고 말해 동해는 대화 증바르만 또 오늘 대화를 했으면 대화 말해 내가 대화 말해 이 동해를 제가 딜을 대화 때나 아니 대화 진이 상황 도구 말해서 직송고를 해서
The feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of pleasure that we as desirous beings are in the habit of enjoying are those that emerge from seeing pleasant features, seeing pleasant colors. We see them and then we think, oh, there are marvelous qualities there. And we grow desirously attached to what we have seen. Or we hear melodious sounds and grow attached to the melody. And this is what we, desirous beings, consuming pleasures through our sense faculties, grow attached to. But the experience of satisfaction is not perfect satisfaction at all. It is a temporary form of satisfaction with a painful nature. It isn't perfect satisfaction by any means.
아니 뭐 대화 빵배 대화디 대화 때문에 대화래 삽쳐 누가쳐 대화쳐 레스 계속로다 이 제다다 대화 빵배 대화스디 세 딜을 자러 있나 세 디기 또그 땀순다 마차바 이바 차와데 빵은 치만 대화 토바 제바디 대화 세 디기 대화래 대화 또 쳐와지 디네 코어동에 드릴 교연도 따는 코어를 탈바고 탈베게 탈바토바 있나 아니 대화 침보스 어떤 대화는 대화 초들이 어디를 찍으서 해서
Though the satisfaction from the satisfaction of desire that is abandoned, that satisfaction of desire itself abandoned is much greater, of greater intensity than ordinary satisfaction from gratification of desire. And in this life, then, in preoccupation with food and clothing and reputation, and having grown attached to food and clothing and reputation, whatever satisfaction comes from this, that satisfaction that comes from interest in successive lives rather than the present life is that much greater. And where the perils and pitfalls of samsara are recognized, and finally liberation is won, that liberation is great satisfaction, great bliss.
있습니다. 직세. 다 진행하도 다 페나도 다 아주 지난 로종신의 배전 송구요. 로종신의 배전 페나도 다 샤르조바토이나 아니 배전 직로를 스며야 되다. 배전이 배 부디 직스미 주스미 니슈스미 스타베 고직 로를 되게 스미 코데데 시기르다 사조로 땅도 배는 로조바토 차샤는 배에 코 대자담을 코 대동지 로스 완전 코페 시우지기다 개바 이바기 맹차야죠와 제가 근데 개바 이바 맹차바 델레스 아니 윤대 근데 개바 많이 봐 윤대 직 배나 닝지도 참바도 아니 얘네 야 강한 삼바다는 돈이 또 베셔 자주 쌤도 직 귤에 깨바티 아니 근데 망고 셰발레 셰잡 쳐와레스 그 뉴바 쳐와레스 보노
Then that for one, and also in art, to take for another illustration, our interest in study. And when a student can say, I've memorized 1 folio now, 2 folios, 3 folios. In the Eastern tradition of committing text to memory, one says, I know this subject I've memorized so many folios. And then for Western students, they can say of a subject, I've read 100 books on the subject, 1,000 books on the subject, and now I am renowned in my learning in the subject. And whatever the gratification and satisfaction that comes from that, it is surpassed by only a moment of developing compassion and love, or even more so, the wisdom realizing emptiness and the awakening mind bodhicitta. And the bliss of just this surpasses by far any of this learning that has been described.
That's somebody something pendawa, church pendawa, nisha. That's something pendawa le, and church pendawa, and that pendawa, subchewa, lapchewa, pendochewa. Oh, do you got to be your? Says not something pendawa, said the penazolo to fire. Tovala, Sejimba, Chabala, Gojimba, any bageta. Any Chigangita, go to Chimbaderwata, go to Chimbader, this something pentabas here. That change pentabas in the time and follow Pageta, another Nimo Namsha shit, and Chimo motor, and Nimo Panjas in motor, and until a Nimbo bed. Tower Namsha ten, and it Tower Namsha Yula Kevalaya, Tape, Tap the sheriff, Tap with Sanju Chamba, the sheriff, only to the sheriff, and did the shit judge. 이제 땀시에 두바이나 아니 집었다 레자 거기 간다 펜타바 레자 아니 취지 펜타바 랍쳐 왔어 어디 이제 시간 거래서
Those then the first point and the second point and the third point, that material help, material benefit is surpassed by the help of the Dharma, the benefit of Dharma. The benefit from Dharma is of greater force, benefit, and blessing than any material benefit. This too is emphasized. And material assistance, material help, is to feed the hungry, to clothe the cold, to provide what is necessary and needed. This is surpassed in force, benefit, and blessing by the benefit of Dharma, which involves that presentation of being afflicted and the introduction to the means to abandon being afflicted. The presentation which involves the indication of the means, the method to this, the method aspect of the awakening mind, bodhicitta, the wisdom aspect of the wisdom realizing emptiness, where these are expounded. This benefit of Dharma greatly surpasses any material benefit.
내가 저거지. 학생 팬다고를 주지 팬다고 삽채하지. 답변은 아주 직벌을 차셔면은 세대기 직바스, 세침에 직바스 이 받체. 또 세대기 직바스, 세대기 동행의 직바. 세대기 동행의 직바를 세침에 동행의 직바를 삽채와스. 이때시 직종걸. 다시 제가 세대기 동행에서 그 세대기 동행이나 다 세대랑 모두 매일 차셔버리나 동행 치슈 가르치기를 치외 동행. 얘는 예외 동행, 나외 동행, 계외 동행. 어떤 동행 지금도 미기 계가 나지 동행 시스. 어떤 데라 찍고들은 세대 동행을 찍고서 그래서
Thus, the greater force of the benefit of Dharma greater than the force of material assistance. And then of fear and its forms. Fear for this life would be surpassed by fear for successive lives. Fear of this life is fear of the pain and suffering involved in this life. And fear of subsequent lives would be fear of the pain and suffering in successive lives. That pain and suffering for a human being in the present life involves the worst form of pain and suffering of death itself, followed by the pain of aging and of sickness and of birth. These four, the pain of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and the fear of them is fear of pain in this life.
다 치매 직과세나? 다 치매 직과들라? 동의 예송기 직과 조 장관모 예송기 직과들 조 직과는 또 예송기 직과세. 아니 되네 야이는 지단 대로라의 직과요래. 아니네 코에게 된 간다 코에게 내게 직과 타다. 아니 치매기 직과들나 레그레 소스.
And the fear of subsequent lives involves especially fear of pain and suffering in hell realms. This especially, pain and suffering in hell realms is fearsome, but there is pain and much to be feared too in the fortunate realms, in all sights in samsara and all the pain they entail. Fear of these is fear for successive lives.
다 세대기 직과 일라 맞다. 직과 세대기 동해라 맞아 직과 끼기로서는 직과 끼기를 세대기 동해라 맞아 시월에 시기를 나나 가게 말에 시기를 아니 계도도 샘데 시기로 하는 시기를 제단다 디 직과 되게 직과 요할 때 있는 직과들이 따나도 다야겠다. 제가 가고 차대요. 그래서 세대기 동행 직과다 좀 잘해. 제단다 깨사도 이마 가와다 나와 치워가가 영에 이마를 따고 가야 버려 말에. 제단다 계속 동행 가고 얘는 깨와 가고 그래. 제단 디디 세대기 직과 다 지과 깨봐 있네 고시라게 네 요마다 도다 비어봐 나 세심해 지과 생각들라 먼저 그 도다 지기 투를 해서는 지투야 나가도 요 답시도 요래서
Do we fear this life and the pain it involves? We do. We fear death. We dislike sickness. We grow anxious as we age. We fear the present life. Though we fear it, there's no way to solve it. There's no solution now. It is done for now, as we are now already born, and all inevitably follows, and there is no preventing aging, sickness, and death having been born, which points clearly to the solution that birth itself must be annulled. Apart from that, there is no solution, and there's no solution to these pains of the present now. For that solution that does remain, though, there is a means and there is a path.
뭐야 다 어디 저 시절도 세대기 지과라 아니 다 지웠다는 팽기 말에 지고 말에 세대 지고 가리나고 계지 봐주는 영화에 이 말다라는 영화 요 말에 제가 나치티 수술랑 방금 질려보다 가와 나와 치워리 걸려요 그래 하디 이 말에 그 지고 있네 팽 말에 텔레 걸 삼로 마땅세 오빠샤 다 치매기 동에 지고들 삼로 땅이나 아니 다 빌라 수수고 좀 거기 동에 텔레 다려야게 그러나 차진 차상 그룹투야 차진 차상 여봐 그룹 고기 여봐 되게 되래 네 계속 그룹이 있어라 아니 뭐네 전에 다 직과 침벌을 껴봐래 대화 침벌 터봐래 손어서
So it is the fear in the present life is fearsome. We are fearful. However, there is no freedom for a solution to the pain of birth, aging, sickness, and death as it transpires in this life in its inevitable order. Of course it does. And though we fear it, the fear itself is of no use than to forget it and to concentrate upon successive lives to come so that one might accomplish what one has the capacity to accomplish and what one has the supportive conditions necessary for accomplishing, namely liberation from pain. When this is accomplished, and it may be accomplished, when it is, then one has guarded oneself and protected oneself from the greatest fear and achieved the greatest bliss.
다 디나네 다 세대기 지벌을 껴봐서야 돼 세치면 지벌을 껴봐서 다 레기로와 세대 동행을 찍봐 세치면 동행을 찍봐 승리도 하든지 다 세대기 동행을 껴봐 치면 동행을 껴봐서 영어도 세상 다 디디 인도 배나 세대기 지벌을 껴봐 이나 여와 찍 가와 찍 나와 찍 치와 찍찍을 껴봐는 그 말 세치면기 동행을 껴봐 이나 제가 나한테 차샤에는 깨워 탐에 나와 탐에 가와 탐에 시와 탐에 껴봐 이제 잘 돼서
Then fear of the present life and fear of successive lives are two fears. And one may guard themselves from what is fearsome in this life and in successive lives. The protection or guarding oneself from these fears then are these two. And if one guards oneself from what is frightening in the present life, then that means one time one does not face the fear of birth, aging, sickness, and death, one time. But when one seeks to guard oneself from what is frightening in successive lives and does so, then the number of births, the fear of the number of births that one guards oneself from are innumerable, uncountable. And the number of times one ages, the number of times one is protected from aging is innumerable, and from illness, innumerable, and from death, innumerable.
뭐야, 감독이 딜레 파사 대시 답대 때스 잡아이나 치매게 동에서도 내송의 동에 장가자에 봐 내송의 동에를 껴나 답대 동에 침벌을 껴봐라 덴도 동에서도 동에 충화를 내송의 동에서도 하지 않는 동에 자고 주부 이거 주주 교른고 데레라서다 데레리 껴부여서다 배 동에 침벌을 껴봐서 거래서
And as the explanation goes, if it is expanded now, as we've indicated that the pain in successive lives involves the great pain of hell realms, if one guards oneself from birth into hell realms, then one has guarded oneself from a very fearsome experience, as the hell realms involve intense, long-lasting pain, whereas lives in fortunate rebirths involve comparatively little pain.
다 얘네 듣고로 다 단도 찍도 다 런도체 봐서 먼저 다 치기 미게 배 속이 차시에도 오다 미게 동야 암조 거여 봐 치게 용화 딱 속이 차시에도 줄을 런도체 반래 난 셈을 런도체 봐대 아니 펜도체 랍쳐 삽쳐와 더어도 송시 하송시
And as successive lives surpass the present life in this way, so too does emphasis upon the mental surpass emphasis upon the visible and audible, the physical.
다 된다 던도시나 아니 다 당고들라 하나서 되버 때문에 대화들라 대화 찍기요 말에 되버 빵배 대화들라 대화 찍투바 지고래 찍제 아니 치셰제기 연대 남다마 뭐 셰바들레 냠내지 똑바 찍규래 깨버데 내 치그레스 이세 산생기 펜타발레 취지 펜타바데 아니 랍체와 질랍체와레스 손제 세디기 동해를 지발레 치매 동해를 지바디 아니 펜도 체와 배 랍체와 레세 아니 존도 체야 있는 존도디 치기 거기 술로 된줄 존도 맞지바 나세는 존도 체바디 아니 냠내 내가 레스 어디기 나디 디 손으로 레스 뭐 냠내 체 내가
In short, then, the pleasure from desire is surpassed by the pleasure from having abandoned desire. And ordinary qualities are surpassed by one instance of having developed a quality consistent with Dharma. And third, the benefit from material assistance is surpassed by that which is much greater and more blessed, the benefit and assistance of Dharma. And fourth, to guard oneself from what is frightening during the present life is surpassed by the advantage of guarding oneself from what is frightening in successive lives. And the fifth critical point, that to emphasize and reify the physical is surpassed in force by emphasizing and reifying the mental. These are called the 5 critical points of practice.
예, 이게 먼저 드린 진짜 그 원조 양내 체가 좀 baş해 봐라. 스타트네. 먼저다 하게 준주고 남샤 시험도 좀 봤다. 간다 준주 누구 당고 숨디 장주sem 생이 다 전부디 계약 탑 마케바 케버체베 탑세 다른에 루시방아와 두바 숨부디 장주sem 시에 차베 장주sem도 간데스다 보자고래. 마냐바 간데치고래 세야겠다. 그 장주sem 윤투는 내가 간데치고래 탑디 시리요래서 다른에 루 시방아와 두바도 둠바 제바 고바 숨부디 장주sem 베티 냠내 체 아니 똑바데 세딜라 베 똑바 차선 토베 빵제 차선 빵투야 똑바 차선 깨투야 니바 요레 요 말레스 니바 요레스 니바 요다 냠내 체야들라 아니 장주sem 보고 퍼진 주 냠내 소 세베 퍼진 냠내 숨부요래서
These 5 critical points provide our introduction again for the context of the Bodhicharya Avatara, the way of the Bodhisattva. The way of the Bodhisattva in the first 3 of its chapters presents the means for developing the awakening mind, bodhicitta, that is precious, where it has yet to arisen, so that it might arise. The middle chapters, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, apply to when one has developed the mind of awakening, bodhicitta, ensuring that it does not decline, providing the means for preserving the mind of awakening continuously. And the chapters 7, 8, and 9 for the undertaking of the mind of awakening, for the accomplishing of the abandonment of all that is to be abandoned, and the realization of all that is to be realized, presents the question, is there possibly such realization, and how is it achieved? There is, and it is achieved through the 6 paramitas, and particularly emphasized is patience.
다른데 이거 가지고 냠내 빠스저고 당보다 냠내 지나대로 가지고 뒤 냠내 뭐 시험도 당보 퇴바 되는 삼바 되는 공바스 다 퇴삼 공숨 디나라체 아니 퇴삼 공숨 대양 아니 퇴바면은 삼바면은 공바메바 공바 용화라 삼바고 삼바 용화라 퇴바고 이바 되게다 무슨 파주 필줄 저와 야고 개체모 일찍 개체와 이거 되게 내주디 시험을 주나 아니 다 냠내는 잘 되고 요래서
And in the way practice does transpire progressively, one progresses first from study into contemplation and on to cultivation, beginning with study, followed by contemplation, and followed by cultivation. These there are in their progressive series. Without study, there is no contemplation. Without contemplation, no cultivation. In order for there to be cultivation, there is necessarily first contemplation, and in order for there to be contemplation, there is first necessarily study. Thus, the connection between them, showing that they are progressive and grow in importance.
거의 제단다 육제의 가서는 공부하기 쌤랑 유대 탐제랑 쌤랑 검네랑 이걸 깨봐 적으로 제단지 공부해봐디 육제를 다 두비하게 전달라 유가를 거래했으나 아니 다 퇴버 삼바다 퇴버니 거 삼바다 퇴버면은 유를 잘해 거 영마로 일단 퇴버다 삼바니지 퇴버다 삼백이 아니 퇴버 제백이 되는데 삼박이 전박이 말라버지냐 아니 네 시시다 좀 잘해 쌤도 잘해 그 쌤도 최선 이부터 쌤도 수 잘해 양도 좀 되지 아니 라기 배시봐 라기 줄로 모두 줄로 차서나 아니 공부 좀 하자 다 최선 고수는 지초나 아니 냐면 다 차단 상기 요래서 뭐지
Cultivation is to be accomplished. In order for it to be accomplished, its causes must be present. Causes of cultivations are study and contemplation. Without study and contemplation, there can be none of the integration of the lessons which are learned through study and recalled through contemplation into the mind itself for the cultivation of the mind. But where these are present progressively, then all that is required in the cultivation of the mind will be present.
어이 잘했어 야 퇴버 체액이 퇴선 고분 체액이 유의들래 딱 뭐가 두고 지단 비용만 두고다 이렇게 대해서 보다 냠내 지혜다 냠내 진예다 냠내 지혜 생겨서 제가 유용도 뭐가 뭐 진이 존나 시험도 유다 유진스 유다 유진스다 유진스 나 유진스도 치기 다 세대게래다 가데베 오마라도 롱스 쥐야게 속다 자다 티다 로다 레제다 두가가 치 유리게로 이게 유리라 그래 헬라 롱 쥐니기 나기 셰바 아니 미기 셰바 나이 셰바 나이 셰바 제 이기 셰바 생겨 셰바 두고디 아니 유진스 제가 다고 유대 유진게 남샤 고 셈다 아니 셈 유, 바가 따색 유시 디니디 야고시 예바 거래서
The object of study and contemplation and cultivation, what we point to in our object in practice, where there is that which is practiced and the individual practicing that, we speak of these and of objects and cognizers, objects and subjects cognizing objects. The objects themselves are the physical, the substance, and the material force, which is consumed in vision, audition, olfaction, gustation, somatosensation, which processes visual forms and scents, visual forms and sounds, and scents and flavors and textures, that there are these two, the objects and object cognizers,
啥的鱼的有些你些，我的这个年我，那鱼的有些你个得了样，俺你高句的，我就是高句不去，我就不去是。军人了，对呢，那什么当的写过呢？军人了，马代嘛现在什么当的写出来的鱼，你要的。军人了，但么个当的我们可都还搞写嘛，写觉得了，我就是。那军人我他妈都军人了，但什么当的那写不写过那个学搞样个的了，好就是。哦，这个年我来说是。
that there are these two objects and object cognizers would be understood, and additionally that objects themselves are of two kinds. We speak of hidden phenomena and apparent phenomena. Apparent phenomena are immediately apparent to the senses, directly known, and are the manifest phenomena. Those that are learned of through inference are the hidden phenomena. These two types as well would be understood.
哦呀，这天鱼了，本来俺说鱼没救是呢，俺说每个痛腿啊，俺做个烤腿啊，俺那屋子如果我什么事了，我什么事如果排血当腿啊鱼的了，没救噻。当我什么鱼都没救吧，一直先把个鱼都救进去的了，到高救是，哦，对这些是用不来说。
Objects which are apparent and processed by sense faculties are those that are apparent to our senses and are heard and seen and the like. They are directly perceived, and objects directly perceived are consumed or processed by the sense faculties. But those objects that are not apparent to the sense faculties and are not processed through the sense faculties, but independent of the sense faculties, impressions to the mind only, are hidden phenomena, hidden objects.
哦，到底那是对鱼了，介绍啊，但遇见了样，俺呢，但遇见的了，那没有通了，遇见这到高就通了，遇见你用个这种。
So the objects. As for the object cognizers, they are of two types. Object cognizers cognizing manifest or apparent objects, and object cognizers cognizing hidden phenomena, hidden objects.
哦呀，那谈到多前面那大鱼的有些你多大鱼人的了差不多拉过这当这些，아니鱼的了差不多拉过这当你，我的这个你就搞错来说是。
So the objects and the object cognizers and the range in objects from coarse to subtler objects and the range in object cognizers from coarse cognizers to subtle cognizers.
哦呀，那其鱼차라스리 나 차라 조단데라 아니 셰바게 간다 셰바기 하게 통용 되잖아. 아니 그 간다를 찍 뭐, 통투니기 치어 강의 받달라 라바세 뭐, 통 마투니 아니 바게다 삼로 땅 길젠 삼로 땅 대신에다 라기 셰바 치고야 그 치어 강의 받달라 아니 참모스 지치 셰바 제그레서
So. So. Among objects, coarse and subtle, as above, there are corresponding states of conscious awareness, coarser and subtler. Objects perceived by coarser cognizers, coarser conscious awarenesses, are coarser objects, and those are directly perceived by coarser states of conscious awareness. Objects that are processed through argument and inference are subtler objects processed by subtler conscious states of awareness.
어이 딱 치기 속들어야 딱 간다 하나도 봐 대시 찍간데 생거려서나 속 뒤태야 망고 뒤베 공부차 되나 라바 뒤태 지나는 참모 뒤져고 딱 뒤태들어야 아니 뒤태 참모세 라바 되다 망고도 쓰여요 그래서
In material objects, in a first explanation of material objects which are aggregates of particles are, in their aggregate, coarse material objects. And as the constituent particles of the aggregate are parsed away, these particles are increasingly subtle.
다 셰바를 잘이나 셰바 차라리 뒤를 잘 보여서 뒤 배나 가지고 있다 배나 셰바 참모도 아니 깨지마세 엔 깨지마 그냥 뒤에 깨지마세 다 셰바 참모지 말려 버려서 셰바 때 뒤주 배나 가지고 미기 셈스라이나 가지고 셈들 아니 깨지기 까마치기요, 니마치기요, 다와치기요, 로직도 파체나 코셈라 마체. 나 들어도 까마치기데 맞춤 단 차범세나 이리마도 셰바 참모 그랬어. 지나가는 그래서 셰바 참모 그랬어 잖아.
So the range from coarse to fine immaterial objects, and the range corresponding in states of conscious awareness from coarser to finer. The moments in a series in a cognition, the moment is a finer constituent part of the cognition. You may have one moment, a minute, a day, a year, and as the duration is lengthened of the cognition, then you have a increasingly coarse state of conscious awareness. There are in the moments which comprise consciousness, fine moments, such as the limit or the length of time for a conscious moment.
야, 딱 안다르 시에바 차라 당스 거기 유 차라 되게 키버리 이 자네 따디 저마 시에바 참모다 라바 되게 라바 되게 두두두두 참모로 뒤 그는 수 라바 되게 라바들 차로 참모로 뒤 시에바 라바는 차차 참모로 뒤로 와 너무 뒤운데 다 담아 거 뒤용으로는 수 되게 라바 되게 두 뒤운데 농들도 농다 아 셰바 되게 두두두두두디 아니 셰바 타모거나 셰바 타모로 농다 셰바 타모 이어 제가 나랑 주고다 미 맞아 밀 차시한 빼 셰바 있나 나랑도 타마다 거기 치기 수 부비하게 사와 아마 소연으로 발전 룽되게 또게 아주 유튜브 치기래 아니 샘디 거라 샘 타모 예바로 농다 샘니 룽샘 타모니 되지 탈동하기 되게지막에 샘 참아제 아데 되제 주 뒤에 타마 되제 참아 차소데 아니 롱 참아제 어때니 아니 만져다 롱주 뒤사 파트람사 이가가 어디 되게 되지고 그래서
The range from coarse to fine, physically, coarse physical objects may be reduced to their finest constituent parts, form, physical matter, in coarsest form, reduced, parsed down to its finest constituent particles, conscious states of awareness to reduced from coarser states of conscious awareness to subtler, finer states of conscious awareness. When this process of reducing physical matter down to its finest constituent element, that process of reduction is to the fundamental moving wind. When that decomposition of coarse conscious awareness, coarse states of conscious awareness is decomposed to its subtlest elementary state, that is the subtle state of the finest or subtlest consciousness. For an individual, it will be for them that physical matter, the very mother or producer of the physical matter, is the moving wind energy producing the body. It is the moment, the minimum moment for the completion of an action that is the finest, that is the finest or subtlest state of conscious awareness. So form decomposed to moving wind energy, moving wind, and mind to its finest state of conscious awareness, the instant, the minimum instant for the completion of an action. These subtle and coarse states fluctuate, one being compressed into another and expanded from the other.
영아 교원고만 내일 참전이 단다 디네파 치마라파 참전 돈이 어디디 농창모데 셰바 창모데
So what is resides presently, what is present, and then what moves or transmigrates into subsequent existences, these are the movement of subtle moving winds and subtle state of consciousness.
제가 맞겨 치마 요래 저 마마 디네 용어를 치마 누구를 세야겠다 돈얘기 다 자기디 농창모데다 샘창모데 다디 아니 수셰바 루사 바가 수 뒤니 뒤세데 야 제만 라고 그거 밖에 깨게 선도데 고차비가 제가 고베다 마스 맹다사게 답에 아마도 고차비가 그래서 말이야.
So that which has arrived and that which then departs, that which arrives and that which departs, are these the subtle moving wind and the subtle consciousness. At present, where arrived is the aggregate of these, the built-up aggregate. What departs is the seed element to them, the subtle wind and the subtle consciousness.
예, 세단 뒤도 당한 쪽에 안당한 쪽 배주 단다게 셰바도 셰바라과래. 셰바라과도 갈래갈래 파간 코수 철철철철시니 참모차 타마 셈 참모도 롱 참모도 아니 셈 참모도 롱 참모디 아니 루디 라과도 파 이용데 참모디 된도디 아니 신 파실레 퍼바스 파르투 파시 생다 네 계시니 파시 아니 파시네 아니 계시네 모두 시바시데 레마스
States of conscious awareness that are put to use and apparent to us now are coarsest states of conscious awareness. Gradually, these grow. Gradually, these become inactive. As they become inactive, the subtler states of conscious awareness are exposed. The subtle, fine states of conscious awareness and the subtle moving winds. In the death process, the coarse states of conscious awareness become inactive, and that which transmigrates into intermediate existence are subtle wind and subtle consciousness. And then from these, from the intermediate existence, move into birth existence, and then on into the living state existence.
또 셈 모두 셈 차라 모두 아니 유 차라 모두 때 뭐시 뭐이나 아니 다 냠내지도 좀 아니 밖에 냠내지야겠네 즉 뭐시 봐도 요레스 아니 어디서 시에바 인산 드린 두두데 조송 아니 어디서 저거들인데 저거 준주 shum데 라마스타 샤죠.
This range from coarse to subtle for objects and object cognizers. The familiarity with these provides vital points for practice. For this reason, then I present them. And as I have now, our time is just about past. We may use what remains for Q&A, and we'll have to leave aside for now the way of the Bodhisattva, which we did not get to.
일단 바보이거든요. 그래서 집시에 다스 가세를 좀 생각도
Then if anything is unclear, then in the discussion, I hope we may clarify.
Yeah, well, I can meet you something.
Sorry. When you say the subtle mind and subtle wind, that means the clear light and the illusory body. Is that correct?
나중에 쌤 참모다 쌤 참모는 루참모 스르트 잠발라 된다디 아니 유루당 어셀 그래와
그리고 세시도 야, 남 또가 줄게 차적이 미기 줄이 쌤 지시게 열었으나 쌤 대시 쌤 주세대 있는 쌤 강을 두고요 말이 그리고 세시게디 야, 남 또가 게 차적을 강사 줄다 냠내 제 토벌레 차게 제래서
in a mind of advanced realization, illusory body and clear light are the relevant terms. Illusory body and clear light do not correspond in all cases to subtle moving wind and subtle consciousness. Illusory body and clear light are the relevant descriptions of events in the mind of highest realization.
이 간다를 원래 쌤이 타마 땅으로 쌤 참모들 왜세스 민이 따르다 왜세 민이 따르다 가도 유류당 왜세 야 셔 중에 있다 선로 이유로 어디를 해서 먼저부터 이 서마산지 꾸주부로와 그들이 유류지 꾸주로 세지 꾸주스라고와 유류지 꾸도 세지 꾸스라고와 세지 꾸스를 좀 되지세들 그래서 또 뭐지로와 나 단단한 주시 용 참모도 쌤 참모도 시기요 유류도 세 주에 주시 어디
The mind in its subtlest state of consciousness is identified as clear light. The subtle moving winds and subtle state of consciousness, subtle consciousness, these are the basis for that which is accomplished through the illusory body. There is the Buddha body brought about by the illusory body, and the Buddha body brought about in clear light. That clear light is that clear light itself is the ultimate clear light. The illusory body is that gulu de
주시
주시 Drupshira.
gyulu ye tamboyo drubya ge suyen ro joro.
The illusory body is the seed for Vasa Shayala, right?
Se de sem chamo dra.
Right.
Gyulu di lung chamo di gyulu drubya drubshi se. Sem chamo di vese drubya ge seed.
The subtle moving winds are the basis for the accomplishment of the illusory body. Jason.
Ganda tanda se na erita ta pare chema ma sanji ji ku drubya zamarwa. Gyulu ji ku drubya di gyulu sui chosna lung chamo dre. 야 산제기 쪽이 추구 쪽이 그 장모들 가르스나 아니 디레다 샘 장모들 추구 쪽이 롱드제 추구 쪽이 샘들.
Then again, in short, the two forms of the Bhattavadi, the Rupakaya and the Dharmakaya, have for their causes that achieve these two, the illusory body and clear light, the illusory body realized through subtle moving winds, clear light realized through subtle consciousness. Are there others?
You know, we always talk about wisdom. In the tantric, you know, we talk about wisdom that's always related to the subtle mind or subtle consciousness or subtle clear light. But in the Sutrayana, when we talk about wisdom, it's always related to the listening, contemplation, and the meditation. So what's the relationship between these two, between the Tantric wisdom and the Sutrayana wisdom?
Then Chöched Zambala, Yang Yang, Nenten Shene, and Shera Yang Mena Yeshe, Tani di Beju Tang Yoro, Tane Sanga Kicho Korla, Simtramodi, Simtramo Yang Mena, and Ösel, and Tani di Beju Tang Yore. Then Do de la ya do. Dola. Dolula. And the Sherap Labdi Tambala. Her sam gom sum tang java yore. Then Chetan the Sangaki Chokorgi Sherap Yang Mena Yeshe Di Dang and the Doluk Nangdu. Sherap yang mana yesi ke Jawa kari yore.
Di kebar tes yore. Dolula yugi vese zoochin shigres. Narula yuji vese zoochin shigres. Di kebar yore. Chara kebar yore.
There is the Sutrayana and the Mantrayana differ. The Sutrayana's emphasis is particularly on object clear light, where the secret Mantrayana's emphasis is particularly on object cognizer clear light. And between the two, there is the difference in coarse and subtle.
Sorry. When Geshe mentioned the illusory body and mind and the seed analogy, I was wondering if that could be compared to a light source with mirrors.
Tadini kishigi ani gulu sirdi zambala gulu konda ani kishigi gulu sungne tadi pedan dön jarne ani 율루디당 아니 처체당 아니 멜론 처사여와 처체당 멜론 배당 돈 자리야 여러베
아주 뒤에 내내 멜론이 데레다 뒤에 건데 멜론한테 순이했어 그러와 멜론이 따서체 이나가 통해야 순이 멜론한테 율루세디 다 규멜루스 지도 아주 자두 되게 줄베고 아니 속트들라 그러와 다 멜론을 잘해이나 멜론 코랑 따서들 멜론은 따니 순이 저와 맨날 아주 시고 다 시고 나서 동보 통으로 와 통도 담았다 시고들 따는 수 동보 통도 멜론나게 지신 순이디 아니 동보니 빼샤려 그래서
Yes, the simile used of mirror and reflected image in the simile, a mirror reflects an image is visible in the mirror. In the reflected image is of a form. For instance, we see in an image a reflection of our face. The reflection of the face, the image in the mirror, is likened to emptiness.
간제다 멜론나게 순이들 따니 거기 가 멜론나게 반반 가다게 도 삼거든 세바지고로 그 출시로 출바지고 멜론나게 순이 통고열도 순이들 거기나 요말 순이들 수수 봤다가 온거 통말아 순이들 거기 요바 증거 세바지 먼저 순이들 거기 요바 증거 대나신 가지고 치료 요바 따당데 가르다 와서 멜론나게 순이 나신 진짜 요레스 치료도 거기 유주문은 요바치 딱이 요 그때도 담바 아마도 이 동반이 된 얘기예요 말해. 멜론나게 지진 순이들이 거기 지시 많이 봐. 멜론나게 지진 순이들을 통하나시 매봐. 통해 열때 통하나시 매봐를 통해도 아니 대발 맞춰 봤어요. 동구 열에서.
When looking into a mirror, the impression one has is of themselves there. The perception, the perceiving consciousness apparently apprehends itself there in the reflected image. What is seen to be there is, in fact, not there at all. The image is reflected by the apprehending consciousness itself onto the mirror as itself there. Phenomena would be understood to transpire like this. Apparently, there objectively, so long as the perception and impression is of phenomena there objectively, then one has not ascertained their emptiness. An image appears in a mirror. What appears in the mirror is not as it appears. The appearance occurs. The appearance does not reflect what is reflected there. And it is so in that what is reflected there, in fact, has no intrinsic nature.
그러다 최대기 낭수 내주 니어 최대기 내주 최대기 낭수 니어 다 낭수의 내주 튜바 주나 아니 거기 딱 덴벌맵 통하래 나중에 내주디 미팅 바이에나 덴벌맵 통과야 말해 이 당고 집중해 그래서
Phenomena are of a mode of their appearance and of a nature of themselves, where how they appear diverges from how they in fact are. That divergence is their divergence indicates that they are not known as they are.
어 세상도 디스도 잠바다 단다 저랑 멜로나 빼들 잘 거기 나중에 내주 멜로나 손이 통하나시 멜로나로 손이 여봤다서나 그 나중에 내주 미통 봐 멜로나게 손이 여 거기 통하나시 매봤다서나 나중에 내주 tum바래 어딜 빼자는데 샤바도 당가 주마다 주고 신바 샤바도 누 자고서
The mode of the appearance of the object and the mode of the object as it actually is diverges. When an object is apprehended as existent, then the apprehension of the object as existence, this appearance of the object as existent, is inconsistent with the nature of the object. When the appearance of an object is not the appearance of an existent object, then the appearance is consistent with the nature of the object. And from here, then, language of what is illusory and the like is employed.
야, 다 타니 비슷하나? 줌버 주바, 덴버 주바스. 또 디니 단다 대시자고 그래서
And from here, the language used is of an obscurant truth and of an ultimate truth.
야, 다시 맞아.
Are there others?
You spoke about the minimum moment for the completion of an action being a subtlest mind and the form reduced to moving wind energy being that subtlest state. And then after that, you said something about them being compressed into one another. I think I missed the point you were making there. So if I could explain that further, that would be good.
네, 계직마 아니 두데베 계직마 아니 심차슈 심차모 다 아니 디르 차라 아니 디르 차라라 아니 타마타마데 아니 룽라 또 그래 어디니 디기 제수 계시기 든지 송버레 다 칙기나노라 칙라 드네 아니 트르 드네 양 숭송 디아 따따코츠무소 벤슬링이 말하기 게 겨르기 타니 땅 타니 베지 땅땅 따따 좀마서
그참 그거 기본적으로 싸움 이제 상당하라 간다 수 시에바디게 라고는 차차 타마 참모들 꼭 난두고 잘못이 먼저 하고 말와 심바브라 두 팀도 봐 팀 타마 팀도 하지만 가족이 배나 치워요 셀레온드 시에바 참모는 팀 봐라 샘 참쇼로 팀 봐라 다 치워 요새 디 아니 디네 요새래 랑 요새 롱바 연 커네 아니 요새 텔레파 트네 롱 바게다 겨 년삼자 계산 계시도 년삼자도 아니 셰버 야 데스라우 터사 참모도 디스 롱 요사가 롱 요사도 좀 셰버 라우 신사로 제가 되는데 셰버 라고 깨야 고주거 किसी थंबोला शेबारा वाके गोचुगरा निबा सोबा केसे ने मोदु सिबाले ने शेबार पेरा बोरा वा छासावा
다 되는 기질로 데 변화데 니 넘버 찍겠네 라 치와라 얘기 네 넘버 찍겠나 다데 네 들 말다 루 샤모 당 아니 심 샤모데 변화 아니 잘라니 아니 나신 찍라 루바
뭐 거기 제요 거기 가가 롱 담어 셈 담어 니어로
그래
니어로 롱드 롱 거라 셈 거기 제가 말다
얘는 니가 로겐 바로 로겐 이어로
거기 어디냐도로
아니 가르치네 아니 전에 로기요 말해 가르치네 잘땅 간지
셈디 자와 치고 이해나 롱드로 보고 롱드면은 셈디 내가 치두고 말해 롱딜라 때는 셈디 자와 치고 어서 그 내가 치중이 롱드래 진이디 셈드래 어제다 그 냠도 매나 내가 치두고 말해 이 냠도 내고라고 말다 다만데 롱 유나 셈 등들이 롱 로나 셈 로글 롱디 라고 차는 셈드라고 차는 롱 차르도스나 셈드 차르도 어디디 좋던 시험 인가다 롱 차라 그래서 시작 말해
States of awareness which begin course will have parsed away from them those coarse states of conscious awareness, leaving ever subtler states of awareness. With coarse states of conscious awareness grown inactive, exposed and remaining are subtle states of conscious awareness. The coarser states inactive, they're primed, underlying subtle states of conscious awareness remaining in a process of increasingly fine, subtle remaining states of conscious awareness. Then from the subtle state of awareness, having moved from the intermediate existence into the birth state, with the first moment of the birth state, that underlying state of subtle awareness has given rise to a coarser state of awareness, and then progressively during the birth state, the states of awareness grow coarser. And then in the living state, conscious awareness has grown coarse. The two, moving subtle wind and moving subtle wind and subtle consciousness are coupled, where moving winds are active, necessarily states of awareness grow active. With increasing coarseness of moving winds, corresponding states of conscious awareness grow coarser.
야, 다这些 비니만 사이는 마음만 도 다들은 대셔 말은 송수.
That we'll only expand more upon this as we go forward. And now we'll conclude with our closing prayers.
야. 다들은 좀 너무 저 되다. 제일 먼저 시도 대화티 때문에 아니 나는 다지 말은 돼야. 아니 대고 이렇게 체크로 거라니까 알토를 때 나는 바토라 만다 지라 마용아 안티네 계시 베데로 세상 퍼베게 아니 지도장 아니 대다베게 선제 간대지만 대탐제로 아니 다 간다 대도 세상 퍼면 직단 라네 람 장타바지 녀바데 영 빌어도 소세게 너는 겨로 치서
Now, in closing prayers, in the virtue of instruction and listening in Dharma, for the well-being, particularly of Adrian, whether presently in intermediate state, if so, that she not experience great fear or great anxieties, if for the moment of the birth state, that it be birthed into the fortune of a fortunate realm. To this end, for her and for sentient beings, whosoever they are, that they find fortunate rebirths and find the perfect path. To this end, then we recite our closing prayers.
거란다 간다 직하게 때가 문제가 남상고 라야게 아니 딱 참아도 여러 가정도 아니 거란을 직 담아 다그 정말로 메기 다 담아 치워가도 삼로 땅다 아니 된제 콜라가도 딱 깨져도 시 아니 거란게 들어와 담아도 렌접되듯이 아니 직내주 상고도 중요하게 저와도 기다 유선이 말은 제가 유선었어.
And there is sign for Adrian that she will secure fortune and that perfect path for her. For in her final days, as death was approaching, we had the opportunity to speak to how one would think through and during the moment of death, and had a conversation, and she asked questions and provided instruction. So that itself was a moment that is itself a good sign.
Temerendo bele zonye je kadar yamba tashi sama lume mare je don rowa yi nande jare wombo tajo je ema zumbe zerma kundu yang jambe yangi zewe je zoni Tembe rimba kunzang ange jo nine jobe gana je jo Rangi jishin tobe langi ne shura zewe rawe tage Roe yike mumba seje ne yewe temba yinri zingyurji Temba rinjin choge ma kyaba kyabyan yambar girve chode ne Inji jimbo yira kyaba ye pende teje sawara jeba sho 세제 야외 매종 제레레 레로 장조 람게 렌베경 타변 남게 예라 베데신 야외 제바 린도 영결지 라잔 르베 뚜yen 루제제 야겐 세제 예방 메메 세라 군르 야외 마바리 남다 남다 저와 마게 간세 대바 저라 주주제 주제 로라 도마데세 로데 나게 다도 로제제 라제 야도 주근 야주지
From my two collections, vastest space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind, wisdom, eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives and my duties. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teaching, and may I please all the Buddhas by practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned. May I uphold Buddha's teaching for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, whatever direction the most precious teaching have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to it all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent path never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddha. When this act in accordance with the temple mind, may I always be assisted by the mighty ones and my oceans of prosperity forever.
가기
진예 사백여완지天堂若 군원 상변 개발의 제정 보상라의天北宁波 rindu 왕르라의 코로의 시카의天大대왕 마르종의 제백여완天등야조 샤베시덴 바르드엔 결의식 Jambe Poe Dara Kimbana Kundu Zambo Deya Deshin Deda Kungi Jesu Dalu Shi Dewa Dida Tamje Radu Dusum Shekwe Dewa Tamji Mowa Gangla Shodu Mabande Dagi Dewe Sawa Digur Yang Zambo Shuji Radu Mwarigi 장주 신조 렘보시 마이케 바나케 비르치 개와 냐바 메바야 공에 공도 배워르쇼. I dedicate whatever virtues I have recollected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of the Venerable Losang Chakra that shines forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Trinity Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious Tuscan ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the supreme jewel Bodhisattva that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you all, and thank you all for your prayers.